Ah, Chaleen, it's lovely to have you here today, and thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Would you mind introducing yourself to our lovely viewers?
Okay, hi Chamonix and hi everyone. Obviously my name is Chaleen and my surname is Botha, and yes, I live in beautiful Perth in Australia, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation,
It is
Chamonix.
wonderful to have you here, Chaleen. So how long have you been in Australia for? When did you move over?
Yes, I've been in Australia for over 10 years now. And yeah, I first lived in Queensland, in Brisbane, and now I live in Perth.
I love Queensland. We used to live there as well for a couple of years. So you first moved to Queensland directly from South Africa, or where
Yes.
did you move from?
So I moved from Beijing, China,
Okay.
to Queensland, and yeah, I lived in China for 4 years in Beijing, and yeah.
That's a very interesting place to live. I would love to hear your story about China one day. I assume it's work that took you there, you and your husband, is that right?
Yes, it was my husband's work that took him there to Beijing, and it was a very interesting time. It was, I always say, one of the best things we ever did. Moving to Australia was quite a lot easier, and yeah, it was very interesting. I actually went back there in December to go and visit all my mates there.
Oh, wow. And do you long to go back to China, or are you happy to stay in Australia?
I would really live anywhere. I'm quite a easygoing person that adapts everywhere and anywhere. I absolutely enjoyed the food, the whole environment, the culture in China, and I tried to make the best of it. Of course, there were many difficult days, but I made some good local friends with the Chinese people. I learned to speak the language, and that's why I actually took the trouble to go back and see my Chinese friends. That
Wow.
obviously
You can speak Mandarin or Cantonese, which one?
It's Mandarin. I can help myself. I can, help myself quite well. And when I went back there, I sort of picked it up a little bit quite quickly. And but obviously, I'm not fluent at all, and you lose it, when you're in Australia and you don't speak it often.
Yes, we have a lot of Chinese people in Australia, but as you say, English is the language of choice here, and luckily you can speak English really well. You grew up bilingual, you said?
I actually grew up Afrikaans, and I never spoke a word of English until I've started working. But then I did my studies by choice in English, and that's really where my whole journey started, with speaking English.
And do you have children, Chaleen?
Yes, I've got 2 beautiful girls, and they grew up overseas mainly, and we speak English at home. It was just a natural thing that happened over time in China. It was a choice between Afrikaans, English, or Chinese, and we just took the easy route. And over time, we now speak English in the house.
So you think in English as well, you'd say?
I do actually think so. I write all my notes in English to myself, and they say when you start to pray and count in English, then you pretty much think in English, and that's where I'm at the moment.
Yeah, no, I agree with that one. I have to say, it's interesting. I know that the coronavirus has been on because I've spent a lot more time at home and not talking to so many people in English. And I can tell that my Afrikaans is coming back so much more to me. It's more than my English. So when I find myself in an English conversation, I have to think a little bit more, because I've been spending so much time, months, just with my own thoughts, I guess, and with my own family speaking in Afrikaans, because we still speak Afrikaans at home. But yes, with children, that grow up in a country like Australia, it's inevitable that they're going to pick up English as their first language, regardless, in my view, of how old they were when they moved here. I know of South Africans who moved here when they were in their high school ages and they grew up purely Afrikaans in South Africa, but now 10 years on, they think and speak basically in English all the time. So it's interesting how it's changed. So Chaleen, tell me a little bit about your visa application and how did that come about? So what was your husband's name?
Andre.
Andre. So Andre applied, I assume, because you said you came for work. Did you do it yourself? What was the visa category? Can you remember?
It was such a long time ago, but it was still the skilled visa. And yes, he applied. As far as I can remember, we did use an agent. And yes, it took quite a while to actually get the visa.
And you came into Australia with a work visa and then after a while applied for permanent residency, or was it a permanent residence visa?
No, it was a permanent residence visa that, you know, is a skilled visa.
Yeah. Okay. And you applied for citizenship in the meantime, I assume? You're Australian citizens now?
Yes. No, we've been citizens for quite a few years already. Yeah.
And Chaleen, what would you say, what's the best thing for you of living here in Australia? What do you enjoy the most?
Okay. I absolutely love living in Australia. I just make the best of everything. It really doesn't matter where you live. It's how you look at things and what you make of it. And I'm very lucky to be thinking that way. I think it's quite a good thing that everything works so well, that people are a lot more tolerant, open-minded, that opportunities, this everything is possible in Australia. And I quite enjoy that.
And in the same breath, is there anything, or there would be, I assume, but what's the most annoying thing for you about living in Australia?
I honestly can't say there's anything that annoys me because, you know, no matter where you go, there are colloquial things, there are ways that people do things that they think it works best. And if you want to fit in as an immigrant, you really need to do it the way that everybody is doing it. There's a wonderful saying, it is what it is. And I just, you know, accept it. And so there's really nothing that annoys me because that is the way people do it here. And I just have to accept it because I chose to actually come to Australia. I know not everybody think of it this way, but it sort of helps you to fit in if you try and accept things a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good point that you raise, because I always say, "Jy moet nie gegewe perd in die bek kyk nie." Now, I don't know what that's going to be in English. Don't look a gifted horse in its mouth. I don't know if that's the...
Yes. I wouldn't know.
But it just means exactly what you're saying. Australia was kind enough to open its arms to you and your family and to give you basically that second chance in life. And who are we to stand there and badmouth all the things that happen?
Yeah.
If there's anything, it's about the attitude that you have and how you approach things. And that's the way I see things. And we've seen with most of the South Africans, those who have that kind of attitude like you have tend to just settle in so smoothly and they love being here. You know, I think it's a heart of gratitude. And
definitely.
And saying thanks for just a second opportunity in life. So Chaleen, do you actually go back to South Africa often?
Unfortunately, no, I don't go back. Look, I have the fondness of memories. I'm still ambassador of my country. I've got absolutely nothing negative to say about South Africa, but I'm quite a person that likes adventures. So I quite like to go to different places every time and even taking a different route there. than the route I come back on, if that makes sense. I try and go to as many different places as possible.
So have you seen much of Australia? Have you toured Australia?
We haven't toured it as much, but I have seen a fair bit. I've been to Adelaide and Melbourne and Sydney a few times, and up to Cairns, and I've lived in Queensland, and I've been down south, as most of us here in Perth would have been. And yeah, I've seen a fair bit.
That sounds like you've seen most of Australia, except perhaps not Alice Springs. I haven't seen Alice Springs yet.
Yeah, no, I haven't been there, sadly.
And of all these places, which of these cities would be your preferred city if you can choose to live in any of them? And why are you in Perth? I assume it's specifically work that pulled you here, or did you choose Perth specifically?
Yeah, so when we lived in China, we actually did 3 look-sees because we were close and we had the opportunity to come over to Australia. We went all over, but the first place we came to, funny enough, was Perth. And I just thought, I'd love to live in Perth, but my husband thought, no, probably not. Let's move to Queensland. And here we are in Perth. I can honestly say that you can really make a good life anywhere. I would quite enjoy living in Melbourne maybe one day, purely for the culture, the architecture, the trees, and it's quite central to live in Melbourne. But if I live in Perth for the rest of my life, I would also be quite happy. Yeah, I mean, Adelaide is quite quaint and unique. I went there last year to the hills area, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's quite small. It gave me a thought of, Bloemfontein in South Africa. So, Australia is just, the cities are amazing. The countryside is amazing. The weather is quite different from Queensland to Perth. I would say I prefer living in Perth purely for weather. But I was
don't like the tropical heat?
I don't like that, and I don't like the extreme storms there. And also, Queensland always has some other huge, if it's not a storm, it's a flood. Every time the state gets back on its feet, there's something else that affects the economy quite a bit. And I would say that in terms of cosmopolitan living, people from around the world, Perth is a lot more cosmopolitan, in my opinion, than Brisbane.
What shall we call it? Like the old-fashioned Aussies there. Can you still hear?
Yes, I think a lot. Your audio went out a bit, maybe.
Okay. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, I think Queensland has a lot of the old-fashioned kind of Aussie still around, whereas Perth probably is a bit more, as you say, cosmopolitan, more international people. I wonder if it's a lot to do with the mining and resources industry that WA has a lot of. Okay, Queensland has a lot of that as well, but it also has a lot of farmers and those kinds of people. So it's probably about 3 times the size of WA in terms of population. So Chaleen, in terms of what you do on a day-to-day basis, you've got an interesting background because I believe you used to be in accounting, is that right?
Yes, definitely. I was in accounting, had my own practice in South Africa, and when I came to Australia, I reinvented myself and followed my first love of marketing and business development, which I fell in love with in the 90s when I did an audit of a marketing department. And I realized that I quite enjoy assisting people in the process of landing a job. And so that is what I do 3 out of the 5 days a week now.
And how did you find starting your own business?
Okay, so it was quite hard in the beginning, but I had a lot of help from Australian people. I started networking in Brisbane, and they were so warm, so welcoming, assisted me a lot. And there's so much assistance at your local town council. Just go to your library and you'll find a whole host of the resources there, information, seminars to assist you. And so it wasn't really that difficult, but I do believe you need to do a thorough research before you start a business.
That's a good point. You need to know what you're going to do. I guess if you start a business without doing the proper research, then it will be difficult regardless of which country you're in. But Australia has so many free resources pretty much for any small business owner and people who want to start off, but really for any kind of person in any shape or form. If you just dig enough and you ask around, then you'll find that there's either somebody or something that's able to help you in your dilemma that you might be in. And you mentioned local governments, or libraries, which fall under local governments. They also tend to have a lot of seminars for free, usually for the people in their municipality, and you can just go along to those and meet people and find more information. And that brings me to another thing, Chaleen. How did you find settling in terms of making friends and finding your feet in Australia? Did you come into Australia with an existing circle of friends, people you knew, or did you have to krap your eie potjie, find your way through?
Yeah. I realized that it's important to build your network even before you come to any country. And I started building my network through the forums in the olden days before Facebook was that accessible. So when I came to Australia, I already had a few friends online, and to this day, I'm still connected to those people. And I also realized that you need to reach out to people, you need to join things, and there's so many opportunities in Australia to join organizations, and it doesn't cost you any money. If you're a person that go to church, that's normally a good place because it will be people that have the same values as you are. At school, there's so many opportunities, and especially with volunteering, is massive amount of opportunities to volunteer.
Yeah.
So I found it quite easy to integrate and build networks.
And you're now happy in Australia in the sense that you feel you belong and this is home to you? Do you feel like that or not yet?
No, definitely. I have never not felt like that. I'm one of those strange people that I felt home since the very first day I came here. I have never had feeling of homesick. I can respect other people feeling like that, but I really don't have any idea what that is like, because I'm here, I'm living in the moment. I have to make the best of being here, and if my mind is not here, if everything of me is not here, then I cannot make use of opportunities that are here, and it will never feel like home if you don't 100% embrace everything in Australia.
Yes, it's the mindset. You are so right. It's what you make of it. And Chaleen, I just wish that everybody that comes or to move to any country, it doesn't have to be Australia, anywhere that you move to, you keep that mindset, because it's life. It's what you make of it, really. You have an opportunity to grab the day, c'est la vie, and just make the best of it. So I can understand that you're happy because you exuberate that kind of peace within.
Yes,
I think that's an important thing. It starts deep within, and if you're content with who you are, then everything around you will really fall into place. And Chaleen, do you have your family still in South Africa? Have they been out to visit you this side, or when last have you seen them?
Yes, so most of my family all of them actually are still there. I have my mom-in-law that's come to visit us a few times, and otherwise I keep in contact via phoning regularly, WhatsApp, and just keep in contact. Unfortunately, my dad is too old to come and visit actually, and but keep the ties. Even my friends back in South Africa that I've had for over 30 years, I keep the ties, I keep the friendships, no matter whether I live in Australia or not.
And have you had a number of people, South Africans, asking you how could they come into Australia? Could they come? Or do you think there's a lot of South Africans that envy you for being on this side?
Since I started, being involved in assisting people in landing jobs in Australia, I have an endless amount of people that write to me, that contact me, and I really see it as part of paying it forward to, not disregard anybody and see, everybody wants to be heard, and to reply to them, on all the different platforms. I don't know whether they envy me. I've never actually looked upon it that way, but I just see how best I can assist them, because, what is life worth living if you're not there for other people?
Yeah, it will be a very lonely life if it's only about yourself. Absolutely true. And if you could give advice to those people in terms of what would be the one thing that you'd say they have to focus on in preparing to come to Australia? What do you think is the most important thing for them to make sure that they can come across probably as smoothly as possible, come across to Australia?
Research, 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 and research. And don't trust recommendations on Facebook. Yeah.
Interesting. Yes.
Yeah, I would say, you cannot let your life decisions depend on asking a few people advice and then following that advice. Do that, but follow it up with, doing proper research, phoning people, go on to Google, go on to LinkedIn. It's a really credible place to build connections, and find people that are trusted sources of information, such as what you are doing. You are a well-respectable, credible person in the community, and you've proved yourself. But don't just, make your life decisions by letting someone that's a complete stranger tell you, what to do.
Yeah.
You cannot do that. You need to research.
That's very true. And in the end of the day, it's a big decision that you're making. So you do want to make sure that you know what you're doing. Chaleen, do you feel that Australia still has a lot of room, I guess, for South Africans to come over? Or how do you see the future of immigration for Australia?
Okay. I'm very closely involved and interested in the local economy and what drives the economy. And immigration is a major driver of the economy in Australia. And we very much need more immigrants to come to Australia. And people in government are very much aware of that fact, and I see a very bright future for people wanting to come to Australia. Give it your all, take every opportunity, never accept no, go all out.
Yes.
If you want to make it happen, you can make it happen.
Absolutely. And with your line of work, with your business, in terms of helping people with their social media profiles, you specifically focus on LinkedIn mostly, is that right?
Yes, Yes, I do.
Do you have a couple of tips that you can give our viewers in terms of what's the
Okay.
biggest mistake that you see that South Africans make on their profiles, and probably how could they make it better for the Australian market?
Yes, I would say if you don't have a complete profile, if you only have connections in South Africa, if you don't have a big enough network, and if you don't display your knowledge, you know, if you're not displaying your credibility, a good profile and displaying your knowledge is very much what other people will have a look at when they're looking at you as a prospective employee of their company.
Very good point. And how would they be able to have other connections if they're in South Africa? How could they potentially reach Australian connections and get that link happening on LinkedIn?
Yeah, look, it's the easiest thing. You know, you basically will start with who you know in Australia and who's in your industry. You know, who went to school with you, who went to uni with you, to build your network in Australia. And it's essential to as much as possible. I always say to people, give yourself at least a 9-month head start to build your network, because you build your network in South Africa, say for 30 years or 40 years. And now you want to land a job in Australia, and you want to literally come here and then think you can apply for jobs, because we all know it's not what you know, it's who you know. So you need to build a quality network for at least 9 months, but I would say preferably nowadays a year is a good time to build your network. And build it with start it up with who you know, and being yourself is the best way to go.
Yes, authenticity. That's a great one.
Yes.
Chaleen, thank you so much for having a chat with us. I really appreciate it. If there's potentially some goodbye thoughts that you could leave our viewers with, something that's maybe close to your heart, something that you'd like to share with them, either about life in Australia or about what they can look forward to, or any kind of parting thoughts that you have?
Never accept no as an answer. You can make it happen. If you want to move to Australia, you can find a way, and you will find that way by doing proper research, by taking advice from quality sources such as the group that you're having, and just never accept no as an answer.
That's awesome advice. Yeah, thank you so much. And on that note, I'm going to say thank you again. And we will definitely talk to you again, because we will want to hear more about your thoughts on a specific video about LinkedIn and those kinds of things, when we talk in general about applying for jobs and getting yourself job ready for Australia. If that's okay with you, you'd love to join us again with that?
You're welcome. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. And Chaleen, have a lovely evening.
You too.
Yes, enjoy this wonderful place we call home, Australia.
Yes. You too. Okay.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.